Welcome to my floor. Today I'm going to tell you all my thoughts on the SENTRO knitting machine. The SENTRO knitting machine is something I see everywhere on TikTok, on Instagram, and I really wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive on it. I'm gonna be honest, this is not my raw first impressions on the machine because I've owned it now for at least a year, and I did do a video on my first impressions on my French channel, but since then I've been able to also take in people's recommendation and have a better understanding of how it works, why it did or did not work the way I was using it before. So this is more of a I've had the time to think about the machine and use it a little bit, and these are my kind of final thoughts on it. So hopefully it gives you an idea on if you actually need this machine, if you want it, and what it could be useful for. So let me tell you a little bit about what my experience is. First of all, I'm a hand knitter. And I have been knitting for many years. I've knitted everything from socks to hats to my wedding dress. Everything you can think about, I've knitted it, so I have the experience. What I notice is that a lot of people using these machines online are not necessarily hand knitters. There are people that want to be knitting but don't necessarily know how to hand knit. So I have a different perspective on the machine coming from a hand knitter's point of view. Also, I have a lot of experience with machine knitting, but not this kind of machine. I do own two different flatbed machines that are used to make a bunch of things, including garments, including you can make socks and hats and everything you want. I have a standard gauge machine, which is a machine that works with very fine yarns from like cobweb to maximum DK weight yarn, and I have a bulky gauge machine that works best with DK worsted Aran bulky weight yarn. And I've used both of those machines a lot to make a bunch of things. So when I got this machine here, you know, I already had some experience with a type of machine knitting. I also have used circular sock machines that are cast iron, very solid circular machines that you crank, similar to this, in order to make socks. And those machines were made, I believe, during the First World War originally, in order to make socks for soldiers. And those machines are amazing. I really hope I can buy myself one day. So I was really curious because people started talking about these machines, but everything that I could find online on these machines mostly were people knitting with this machine with acrylic yarn. And I have nothing against acrylic yarn if that is what you prefer to work with, but I have no interest in working with acrylic yarn. Personally, I work with animal fiber mostly, and sometimes I'll work with linen or cotton, but mostly it's animal fiber in my stash. So I wanted to see what this machine could do with animal fibers, and also, you know, what I could get from this, because yes, the main point of these machines is the speed. You know, you turn this and it cranks and it knits and it knits and it knits. So yes, the speed is very interesting. Maybe you couldn't even hear anything I was just saying because it does make noise, which is the first thing that I dislike about this machine, is the fact that it's noisy. But is the speed an actual plus when you're actually cutting on the versatility and what you can actually make? So let's talk about how you use it. I'll use it in front of you, and then I'll talk about the things that I like and the things that I dislike. So let's do a little change of angle here. Okay, so hopefully the microphone isn't gonna pick up too much noise from the actual machine, but here's how you first of all set it up. Technically there is some little, you know, suckers here, but mine don't stick whatsoever. I bought mine used, but I bought it used from a woman that said that she knit 3 hats with it, and I believe her. And even though it only has been used for a few hats, it already did not hold on to anything. So that's, you know, annoying. Then it has a tension thing here, which is 3 little holes that are, this one is smaller, medium, large. So it should give us a different tension when you knit with one versus the other. The machine is meant, from what I could tell after doing some different experiences or tests, it works best with worsted weight yarn. So this is Patton's Classic Wool Worsted. And I'm just gonna be knitting a little bit of a tube for you and let you know what happens. So first things first is you gotta get to the number 1 pin, which is the white one. A little far from my thing. I'm gonna do it like this. All right, number 1 pin. Where is it? Did I miss it? I missed it. So I have to go, here you go. So this actually is the last pin, is the number 48. I have a 48 pin machine. And now I can start. So you lay the yarn and you weave it in and out of the pin. So you have 1 pin that has yarn and 1 pin that doesn't. So forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. And that's where, if I had a machine that would actually hold on to my floor, it would be much easier, but it doesn't. And it's plastic, so I can feel the machine kind of not being very collaborative. But I did try to take it apart, put it back together with some, some oil that was meant for, I should have taken the yarn from the inside of the ball, because now my ball is gonna just flop around. Okay, anyway, now that I'm back at the beginning, I can now put my yarn in the guide, and I'm gonna put it on the highest tension, and I don't know if I'm supposed to kind of weave it in through the 3 of them to give like maximum tension. I'm gonna go with the 2 and then we'll see. I've seen a lot of people have to literally hold the yarn to maintain the tension because this thing keeps on popping out. And here I have a beautiful row counter, but as you'll be able to tell in a few minutes, this row counter does not work. It skips so often, and I've seen multiple people say that they had to buy a different counter. So that's an extra expense to put an additional row counter in. So here we go, we just start knitting. This is not working, so I'll change where my yarn is coming from just because. Okay, I technically am at row 3, which works, but we'll see if it keeps going. So the things, this yarn keeps popping out of the tension yarn, so I don't know if I just do this, it might be my best solution for tensioning it, but then I have to hold the freaking the machine and the tension and turn, which I don't have enough hands for, so maybe I'll keep tensioning down here. So for now, it seems like my machine is doing a pretty good job and it's not dropping any stitches, but I have to tell you that when it does drop a stitch, it creates this tuck stitch, because here the yarn, let me try and get you closer. What happens when you turn is that the yarn goes into the hook here, and it is pulled through the hook, the loop that's on the pegs, right? And then that's creating a stitch. And then this new, when we come back around, the loop that has been knitted through here, when we get here, this loop will now, as the peg goes up, it will go behind the peg, and then the one that's inside the hook comes back onto those pegs. So watch it. The loop on number 5 is gonna go up, and the little yarn is hooked under the hook, and then we're gonna give another strand to the hook, and that wool is now below here on the pegs. So it's a pretty smart, you know, concept. But once you miss loops, which usually happen around here when you do this lifting thing, sometimes the yarn will not go over, or when you come here, this little loop here will not stay in the pegs, it's gonna go in the hook, and then things get messed up. And most often than not, what happens is you have this kind of tuck stitch, and it is really a pain in the butt to fix. So, okay, so now that you've seen how it actually knits, here are some things that I have noticed. The range of yarn this machine will take is very narrow. It has to be worsted weight. It could be DK weight that will work as well. Or you could take a very small yarn, but then you're getting a very, very, very loose fabric. So my daughter made a hat for herself, very similar hat to this, with 2 strands of fingering together. And it is the airiest freaking knit that I've ever seen. Like, wind blows right through it. She is wearing it right now because it's not very cold outside, but as soon as the temperature goes below 0, she can't wear that hat on her ears. It's not enough. I knit this cowl with 2 yarns together, was 2 fingering weight yarn, and you know, I don't know if you will be able to see, but look at the size of those stitches. So this is doubled. I basically made a super long tube, and I took it off the machine and I grafted everything together, all the live stitches. So I did have to do some hand manipulation to close the tube into this, you know, seamless thing. It's fine, you know, it works as a cowl. And because it's a cowl and it's like bunched up around the neck, it's warm enough. But if it was a hat, it would absolutely not be warm enough for my ears, even if I doubled it up. For me, this, you know, this type of stitches is not very nice to look at. It's just too big, it's too loose for the type of knits it's supposed to be creating. For me, I would love to be able to use bulky yarn with this machine in order to create bigger stitches that are actually tighter, a denser fabric, but it won't. I tried using bulky weight yarn in this machine and it jams the machine. It just doesn't work. Also, when you use 2 yarns together, it creates this weird, like it's the same thing for all machines, to be honest. It doesn't marl the yarn very well. Like at some point you'll have big long stripes of just this one color being in the front, like right here. I have the pale pink in the front for a while until I can see the other yarn that's coming to the front here. It doesn't allow the yarns to mix very well, unlike when you're holding 2 yarns together in hand knitting. I also made another cowl here for my husband. So again, very loose, big stitches. This one is made out of a very rustic, it's a lamb's wool, not lamb, yeah, it's a lamb's wool from Quebec. and it was a DK weight, but because it's very loosely spun, it can be knit at a worsted weight gauge. And yeah, it fills in the holes because of the quality of the texture of the yarn that's very loosely spun. But again, it's great for a cowl, wouldn't be great for a hat. Then I tried something different. I thought, you know, if I'm gonna have to knit at a looser gauge, maybe I can tighten it by doing some hand manipulation at the end. So I knit this tube here, and what I did is once I was done, this is the back. So I knit a big tube and then I folded the hem onto itself, and then on the front side, what became the front side, I picked up between two knit columns and I laddered up with a hook all the way up. So I have one knit column per, one knit column and then two purl columns, one knit, two purls. But I had to spend all that time laddering up this knit column with a hook, and I also did all the shaping at the top by hand. So starting here, I did some regular decreases for the hat by hand, because if you don't, the only thing you can do is once you're done knitting this tube, you take a needle, you take every single stitch off the hook with the yarn running through them, and then you cinch it really tightly. And so the only look that you can achieve at the top of the hat is this cinched look, which is okay if you're gonna put a pom-pom on top or whatever, but you're never gonna get nice, neat decreases like this because it's stuck on this machine that doesn't decrease. The machine does come with a set of hooks and needles that are plastic as well, but they're bulky and weird, and I found myself wanting to reach for just a regular crochet hook in order to pick up stitches when the stitches were falling off the needles. So that's something to consider as well. I didn't really love the things that came with it. So to be honest, would I buy this again, or would I buy this full price? I wouldn't. I don't think that the final product is enjoyable enough for me to want to pick up this machine and knit with it. I have not used all the options. There is a panel option. So here I'm on T meaning tube, and if you put it on P, you are on panel. And when you do the panel, you can go back and forth, so you can basically make a back and forth panel. So you can make a rectangle or a square, and I've seen people knit skirts and dresses and tank tops and things like that with it. But again, everything is very loosely knit. The stitches are see-through, and it's a very particular look that I personally don't love. I love knits that are actually that I can't see through, that protect me from the weather. I like having loosey, stuff for shawls or for, a summer layering piece, but I don't see myself wanting to use the machine for that because it basically only does stockinette. Decreasing and increasing is probably really complicated in a if I were to knit a panel. I could probably decrease on the side, maybe increase a bit, but I don't know why I would want to hand manipulate those stitches because they're really difficult to get back on the machine, as opposed to a flatbed machine. So there are flatbed machines and you can actually hand manipulate the stitches much, much, much easier. So I'd rather, because I've done this, I'd rather do a hat on my bulky flatbed machine, back and forth, do all the shaping, and then seam it up on the side, than to have the capacity to knit a tube that I can't really control the size it's gonna come out at because there's just that one width. Yes, I can change the tension with my hands or the tensioner a little bit, but I haven't had much success trying to change the tension. If you have tips, go ahead and put them in the comments. So I'm gonna take this off the machine to show you what the fabric looks like. So you basically just take off the yarn from the tensioner. I'm not gonna put a yarn through because I don't care if it starts unraveling, because this is just for showing you, and then you just Comes right out. Okay. This is the fabric I'm getting at a worsted weight. Obviously, right now it is very wide, and you will have, when it comes off of the machine, you will have to stretch it this way in order to, you know, get a better fit and tension on it. So the 48 pins is supposed to be to make hats, flat stuff, or cowls. I don't think it does much more than that. Obviously, it won't make socks. It won't make, if you make a headband, it's gonna be quite a thick headband until you fold it, unless you fold it on itself. I've seen people make double, you know, fabric, like close off a tube and then fold it on itself and then sew it to make, you know, a mitt. Okay, but to me, it's much more trouble than it's worth. So this is as tight as those stitches are gonna get. And you can see, I don't know if I can show you something through it. Not really. I'm just trying to see if I can make you, it's very difficult, but I can, here you go. I can see right through it, okay? So, if you wanna invest in a machine that's gonna be versatile, it's not this one. If you wanna invest in a toy, it's a toy. My daughter, who's now 10, so she was 9 when she was using it, like I said, made herself a hat with it. She got very frustrated because the row counter wasn't working, but she could do it herself. And then when she was dropping a stitch though, she couldn't fix it herself. I had to go and fix it for her because it is complicated to fix. So, you know, it's a toy, it's an expensive toy in my opinion. You'd probably have more fun with a bulky weight flatbed machine like a LK150. Is it a bulky weight or is it a mid gauge? Sorry, it's a mid gauge. I said it was a bulky gauge, but it's a mid gauge. So you'd be I'll come back and edit that in the comments, but my second machine is a mid gauge flatbed machine. It's called the LK150. And if you're interested in a really good mid gauge machine, that would absolutely do everything this can do better and more. So here you go. Tell me if you have one of these machines. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Were you thinking about buying one? Did I make you reconsider buying one? Let me know what your thoughts are, and happy knitting. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.